devised in Tokyo in February 2003 as an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration featuring a special presentation format, 20 images each for 20 seconds, moving on while you speak along. Do not sign for more and for gatherings, rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult, presenting something that you like. Ideas what talks about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together let's say 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh 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 eh.
PechaKucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
PechaKucha is een avond vol verrassingen.
Devised in Tokyo in February 2003 as an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration featuring a special presentation format, 20 images each for 20 seconds, moving on while you speak along. Do not sign for more and for gatherings, rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult, presenting something that you like. Ideas what talks about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world. Together let's say 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh 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 eh.
PechaKucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
PechaKucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, PechaKucha is Laklakets make in Turkish.
Named after the onomatopoeic Japanese phrase for the sound of talking, this is PechaKucha. Thank you Artie Dema for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always swung in a place, eating and drinking space. Bar resto gallery, home beach or sway, membo. Sharing a relax way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh 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 eh.
PechaKucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are PechaKucha, we are PechaKucha. All over the world, a real network. We are PechaKucha, we are PechaKucha. With wonderful stories and the big nights.
PechaKuchaストーリーテリングのフォーマット。20秒のスライドを1枚あたり20秒使ってプレゼンテーションを行います。
PechaKucha ist für uns allen eine fantastische, eine großartige Bereicherung unseres ganzen kulturellen Lebens.
First in Tokyo in February 2003, as an event for young designers to network and show their work in public. It has become a global celebration, featuring a special presentation format, 20 images each for 20 seconds, moving on while you speak along. Do not sign for more and fun gatherings, rendezvous for creatives or the city. Everyone can present whatever their age, no matter children, teenager or adult, presenting something that you like. Ideas what talks about anything. 1,000+ cities around the world, together let's say 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh, 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh, 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh, 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh 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 eh.
PechaKucha, événement mais surtout format de présentation orale en 20 images qui se succèdent automatiquement chaque 20 secondes.
PechaKucha is een avond vol verrassingen, waar mensen de tijd nemen om weer eens echt naar elkaar te luisteren.
Hey, PechaKucha is Blackstone in Turkish.
Them Dr. Dio no matter what Japanese phrase for the sound of talking. This is PechaKucha. Thank you Artie Dema for this concert for short and concert presentations lively like cha cha cha. Always swung in your place, eating and drinking space. Bars to gallery, home beat your sway, membo. Sharing a relaxed way, put your hands in the air. You feel the spirit. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh. 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh eh eh, 20 by 20. PechaKucha, PechaKucha, eh 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 eh.
PechaKucha es un evento y formato de presentación oral con 20 imágenes que pasan una a una a cada 20 segundos.
We are PechaKucha, we are PechaKucha. All over the world, a real network. We are PechaKucha, we are PechaKucha.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathleen Marr, and the first thing I have to say is I love that song. It's a great way to start the evening, so thank you to our friends who put that together. I am the executive director of the Barnum Museum in Bridgeport, Connecticut, in the USA, for all of the viewers from around the world watching, and I want to welcome you to our 10th live Bridgeport PechaKucha night. First thing I want to say, of course, is that I'm hoping you and your family are all well and healthy, and I hope you are looking as forward as we are to a brighter COVID-free 2021. In recognition of Bridgeport, you can see above me the banner. The city is celebrating its 200th year since its inception as a village in 1821. BPT 200 is a year-long celebration of Bridgeport's extraordinary history, and it's going to celebrate how it has grown and flourished into a strong, vibrant, diverse city with an amazing community, and that's what we celebrate tonight. Certainly, the pandemic has significantly influenced this year's Bridgeport PechaKucha night. Of course, going virtual is the biggest change, but because of that, this is the first time we have 5 storytellers from out of state. So we want to welcome you and everyone watching to the Bridgeport, Connecticut PechaKucha night. And just for context, for those of you that might not know, right now where you are is barely about an hour outside of the heart of New York City. So we're close enough to visit if you're ever in the city visiting. Another COVID impact that we're witnessing is an extraordinary transformation of traditional storytelling methods. Our many accomplished storytellers have masterfully embraced the virtual PechaKucha format and will enchant us with their stories this evening, not in person, but in this new digital platform that we have. So we are so pleased that you're here with us. For those of you that don't know, PechaKucha is a Japanese word for chit chat. It's a simple show and tell format devised by the architectural team of Astrid Klein and Mark Dytham, where presenters show 20 images for 20 seconds each and skillfully share their personal stories of struggles and triumphs within that very quick timed format. The images move forward automatically, so there is no next slide and no going back. 400 seconds later, the next presenter is on. What started as a one-time event in Tokyo has taken the world by storm and grown into a global celebration of creativity and emotional connection. The first PechaKucha was actually held in Tokyo in February of 2003. Klein Dytham Architecture continues to organize the Tokyo event, along with conducting the global PechaKucha Night Network. There are currently 1,262 cities around the world that are registered as official PechaKucha sites. A huge shout out tonight to Brian Scott Peterson, Christina Dean, and Mark Dytham, who are joining us tonight from the PechaKucha mothership in Tokyo. We're so happy you're here tonight, and we are so grateful for all your help as we move our evenings along. There have been over 100 PechaKucha nights around the world since the beginning of 2021 alone. So even during a global pandemic, our connection and our storytelling is still so important. PechaKucha, interestingly, is a license for a city. In 2018, Bridgeport registered to be a PechaKucha city. Our partners, Suzanne KACHMAR she's the director of City Lights Gallery in Bridgeport, Lauren Coakley-Vincent, president of the Downtown Special Services District, our local storyteller and PechaKucha teller, Nina LESIGA, the Barnum Museum's very own director, John Swing, and the incredible Bill Derry are the masterminds behind Bridgeport PechaKucha Nights. I want to thank you all so much for everything that you do to make these incredible, wonderful storytelling evenings. And this has been a particularly new challenge for all of us, so I am truly grateful. Bridgeport has had 10 PechaKucha events to date. These are some of the posters by local artists, Tina Sommers, Darius Kanarak, and Susan KACHMAR. Interestingly, our last PechaKucha was part of the global celebration where we joined the 24-hour massive global event from Tokyo during the International PechaKucha Day. It was back in February 2021, and it was phenomenal to see what can happen on a global scale and truly demonstrate the wonderful things that happen locally in our own backyards. Now, Bridgeport has had over 100 PechaKucha tellers as of this evening. And I want to give every single one of our alumni, and even if you did another city, you're an alumni of PechaKucha, a special word of thanks to you. This is an extraordinary thing that you do, and you're so open and sharing. Each PechaKucha has a broad theme to help focus the stories, and tonight's theme is food for thought. The poster, with a graphic by Suzanne KACHMAR, shows the iconic Godzilla with the Barnum Museum carefully nestled in its claws. So some of you, like me, I grew up on Godzilla. And I know the question to ask, is Godzilla a force for chaos? Or in fact, is Godzilla representing the consumption of knowledge and creativity? A talisman for protection, ensuring the world is a safer, more vibrant place. Food for thought. Some stories tonight deal in some way with food, while others spark ideas that will make you ponder and think. They all will provide food for thought in one way or another. I am also in charge of housekeeping, so I'll wrap it up with letting you know tonight's PechaKucha is being recorded on a YouTube live stream, and it will be available for viewing later. We have 11 presenters who will be presenting live, and there will be one that is recorded. As usual, each presentation is available for the future on PechaKucha website, so you can always see them. If you do not have this evening's lineup, and if you want more information about our presenters, the program with the description of the stories can be downloaded. You will see that somewhere on your computer screen, so it's accessible for you. We will have a 5-minute pause halfway through. And during that pause, you can stretch, but we will also be showing 2 short PechaKuchas presented by Lauren Coakley Vincent and Suzanne KACHMAR. They did these for the 24-hour Global PechaKucha Night back in February, and they're great fun. So please do watch and enjoy them. You may comment or ask questions in the YouTube chat. John is going to be manning that part of the event, and we are going to do our best to respond back to you as quickly as possible. All presenters' contact information is also in the program, so please do feel free to contact them directly with any comments or questions that you might have. So, the first half of our program will contain 6 presenters who will run consecutively with a format slide that you see right here. We will begin with a 3-time Bridgeport PechaKucha presenter, Linda MARCHISIO. Her story, everybody says so. On with the show.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here tonight and to start off the show. I am Linda MARCHISIO, and I am a soon-to-be retired teacher, 20 more days of the school year, and a storyteller. I'm all set, Bill. When I told my friends I was going to Scotland, everyone wanted to see the mysterious Loch Ness. Everyone wanted to see the romantic castles and the rugged wild mountains. And then they warned me, the food in Scotland is terrible. Everyone says so. But I wondered, because when I came back from Spain, everyone said that the food had been delicious, but I had mediocre food in Spain, except for the fresh, squeezed orange juice, which was so authentic and sweet. And the Serrano Spanish ham was great too. In Scotland, we stopped for a tour at a tartan and plaid museum and then walked up to the cafe counter to order. And on the menu bar, it said choose 2. And I knew what that meant because they had choose 2 in Spain. You get 2 white bread triangles, sandwiches, crust off. And I ordered tuna fish and ham. And when they came in Scotland, tuna fish and ham, it was not 2 sandwiches. It was 1, tuna and ham together with buttered bread. The food in Scotland was terrible. Everyone said so. It's all fried. Well, that night I was careful on what I was ordering at the Barony Castle. I perused the menu and I chose salmon. That would be safe. Salmon, spaghetti, and pea sauce. Oh, I thought, cool. I love green peas. I like even English mushy peas. Maybe like pea vera sauce. No, 6 peas on my spaghetti, covered in a red sauce, thin and sweet like SpaghettiOs. Oh, the food in Scotland was terrible. Well, at a chip shop, I tried the fried Mars bar, and I did not like it. And I tried a deep fried, battered, covered slice of cheese pizza, and I did not like it. But at an evening meal, I ordered fish and chips, and it was delightful. Flavorful, crisp batter, fresh, sweet fish. Normally, I cover my fish with tartar sauce. I didn't need it. They didn't even offer. Everyone says the food in Scotland has no finesse. But in the conservatory room, I had a delightful, crisp, sweet meringue dessert with berries on top and cucumber sandwiches like my mother used to make them. There was plenty of finesse there. My bed and breakfast had artfully arranged butter. And in my room was a cut glass decanter of sherry. It was warm when I swallowed, a slight flavor of cloves and raisins. I appreciated that nightly sip. Haggis. Everyone says haggis is nasty. But do you know what it is? The witty Scots have the U.S., 1/3 of the U.S. citizens convinced that haggis is from a small wild animal with uneven legs for climbing mountains, but it's not. Haggis is liver and lungs and heart ground up and cooked with oatmeal and natural casing, and I ate it and it was good. I mean, if you've had pate, you've had liver. If you eat Italian sausage grinders, you eat natural casings. After that, I started to order Scottish food. I had Scottish steak pie, and though there were way too many mashed potatoes, it was much better than my friend's American-style steak with onion rings, and I finally got my green peas. And in Scotland, on every hillside, there were sheep. There were literally more sheep in Scotland than there are people. So I ordered a lamb shank at a dinner. Slow cooked, tender, juicy, falling off the bone. But it was the Cullen skink, not stink, skink, that had me ordering traditional Scotland the rest of the trip. It's a smoked haddock soup with onions and potatoes, and it was better than any New England clam chowder I have ever had, and I live in New England. I didn't like all the classic Scottish food. I did not like the sewer plumes, sour plums. These fluorescent green candies did not taste like plums, and they were so puckery and bitter tasting that I spit it out into a napkin as soon as no one was looking. Oh, but I almost moaned out loud when I ate the sticky toffee pudding, so decadent, soft, and caramel. It was the end to a wonderful Croft Farm dinner of venison, and the deer meat was tender, not dry, not gamey. Everyone says the food in Scotland is stodgy, but it's not. My Arctic carved fish on the bone was sweet and rich and so fresh. The adjoining fish market, you could not smell the fish. That is a sure sign of freshness. And who knew? Scottish strawberries? I bought a pint at a kiosk in a shopping mall. So sweet, so tender and flavorful. I can't remember the last time I had berries that good, and I go berry picking. Must be the 17-hour days of daylight. In Scotland, I saw the romantic castles, I saw the mysterious Loch Ness, I saw the rugged mountains, and the food in Scotland it's not terrible. The American food was poor to middling in Scotland, but the Scottish food in Scotland was divine.
Howdy ho. I'm Pat Spalding. Recently moved to Harrisville, New Hampshire from Seacoast, New Hampshire, where I've lived for 40 years. And this story is a little bit about that move. I'm ready, Bill. It's February 1951. I'm 4 years old, being pulled on a toboggan across a big frozen lake. My mother and father take turns pulling me or carrying my baby brother, Dean. When I ask Dad where we're going, he says, camp. Camp. It's April 2020. I'm 73 years old. Ice out happened less than a week ago, and I am paddling a canoe all by myself across this cold, empty lake against a very strong wind because 1 month ago, COVID-19 put a lockdown on everything I know to be normal. I live alone. I'm okay with that. Have plenty of friends, lots to do. But when I was quarantined in my own house and told, don't go out, wear a mask, it isn't safe to have friends over or to breathe, nothing was safe but confinement, containment. I had to break out to feel the cold air, the rush of wind and water, to use all of my strength to keep this damn canoe pointed toward camp. I know it isn't safe to be paddling through this blowing wind and white caps all by myself, but damn it, it makes me feel alive. There's no road to camp, no plumbing, no electricity, no neighbors. Camp remains pretty much the same as it was when it was built in the late 1800s. A wood stove for cooking and heat, and a cast iron hand pump that draws water from the lake for doing dishes. Every summer, my father and brother had a cannonball diving contest. Once, just before he jumped off the boulder, Dad commanded, "Watch this little beauty." My mother shouted out, "All eyes on the little beauty," just as he lifted off and he splattered into a belly flop in laughter. From that day on, Dad was referred to as the little beauty. I was divorced at 59 years old and almost too busy to notice. Signed up for Match.com, signed off, told stories about it, learned stories from other people, twirled a baton with an activist street band, led parades as far away as New York City. Cheerful, healthy, and always very, very, very busy. I breezed through my 60s. Then I turned 70. Slowed down, took stock. I loved where I lived in Seacoast, New Hampshire, but owning and maintaining a house and property had become way too much. I needed to downsize. So I hired Ruth, a professional downsizer who knew how to dig in and get things done. We sorted, sold, and gave away furniture, costumes, lots of stuff. Things were moving out of the house, but not me. I couldn't decide where to go. A condo, an apartment. So I stalled and signed up for a free lunch and a sales pitch for active retirement living. Everything will be taken care of right here within this new community of friends. You no longer have to cook. It's your choice every step of the way. No risk of becoming a burden to your children or family. You'll be safe and protected right here every step of the way. Yeah, well, I don't want to be a burden to anybody. I mean, everything taken care of by somebody else, that could be a good thing. All risk and challenge removed in exchange for confinement, containment. No, not yet. But I didn't let out that howl. Instead, I went to more free luncheons, trying to convince myself that at my age, without kids, this was the practical life choice. It was the responsible thing to do. I needed to make a decision. I give up. It's mid-April and cold. The wind is too strong to keep this canoe pointed toward camp. So I let the boat flounder to shore, pull it up, tie it up, and bushwhack the rest of the way there. By the time I get to camp, I am exhausted. About 10 years after the summer of the Little Beauty, my brother made a life-changing decision. A boat, the only transportation to and from a small island where he was working in the Hudson River, New York, came untied. Empty, it was speedily drifting away from shore. Dean, trying to do the responsible thing, dove into the river to swim after it and bring it back. Maybe he'd been the one who tied it up. We never asked. Knowing would not have changed the outcome. The current was too strong. It pulled him under and he drowned. This accident might not have happened had Dean not been 24 years old and feeling immortal. But he was. It broke the heart of our family. It broke a lot of things, but not the single determination of those of us who were left to keep on going to camp. My mother said, "I taught both of you how to swim right here, how to feel safe in the water." Dean was a good swimmer. Maybe if I hadn't encouraged him so much, if he hadn't become so confident, maybe he wouldn't have swum after that damn boat. Maybe. There is risk in every decision and no guarantee of safety. The next morning, I hiked to the canoe, paddled through white caps, then rounded the cove, but was blasted by wind. But this time, it was blowing in the right direction. So I sat still and let the canoe float sideways down the lake back to where I'd started. This pandemic stopped me from being so busy. The wind stopped me from paddling. The lull of both stopped me from trying to figure everything out before making a decision. I sold my house and I rented a small place 20 minutes from the lake instead of a 2-hour drive. Now, whenever I want, in any season, I can go where my family has always gone, every step of the way to find our way home. I will go to camp.
I'm here tonight to tell you the story of food and the HIV community, the criticality of afternoon coffee and conversation, based on some experiences I had when I was traveling around the country and in large part the world, speaking to people living with HIV and collecting stories. February 28, 2017, in San Francisco, I met a very cold doctor who casually informs me that I have an acute HIV infection with a viral load of over 10 million. So to the hospital I went, but all I wanted was a warm cup of coffee and a plane ride home. Truly, all I wanted was for the world to stop. Well, in that ambulance, I worried not about myself, but of the so many unnoticed living with HIV who do not have all that I have. So I vowed then and there that I would make everyone I came across who was living with HIV feel at home and make sure that no one again ever went unnoticed, no matter who they are or where they may be. When I would sit down with someone, it was clear that no one else noticed us. Whether we sat on a street corner or climbed to the roof of some abandoned building, no one noticed us because no one ever noticed them. And while we were going unnoticed for the third or fourth time and in the midst of a great conversation, the possibility of what you can notice in a person became clear. In the beginning, we mostly met in churches and places of worship. These places inspire me. They always have stories to tell about the world around them and the people who visit them. And as quiet places of meditation, they make perfect venues for a good conversation. Interestingly, it was always someone in the sanctuary who seemed to notice us. No matter the person or the place, the topic of death was the most common of all. Maybe it was the sanctuaries that brought out those thoughts, or maybe, and I think that this is it, people with HIV are acutely aware of our existence and acutely aware that the sands of time run just a little bit faster for us. We have more of a plan for death in many cases than we do for life. Certainly this is true in Jackson, Mississippi, where I met those closer to death than anyone I had met in any city before. Young people who were wasting away. But the moment I met with them, they only lived for that cup of coffee and that conversation. Never before had I seen people so comfortable with their own mortality. The people of Jackson told me of their friends and lovers who had gone before. Hundreds of them went unclaimed and were cremated and buried in a simple, unmarked mass grave behind Grace House. Some asked to have their coffee and talk with me out there on that grave so that their friends wouldn't go unnoticed anymore. It was hard to absorb all that I was hearing. How could anyone abandon a human, dead or alive, in the same way that we abandoned, a building? So I went to Detroit. And I brought my coffee into abandoned buildings, and I met more people who went unnoticed. In these places, I was often scared, but most of the time stoicism overtook me as I knew that it was best to save my emotions for what lay ahead. A man asked me when I met him in one of those buildings if he could draw his life for me, and I handed him the notebook. And the stars that he drew on that paper lit up the fourth floor of that shelled building. The faces of the unknown in his portraits were like seeing the many faces of God, and I was, needless to say, moved. Now it wasn't just coffee anymore. No, it was drawings, lists of favorite songs, and absolutely incredible work. Journals started to come back from people living with HIV in places as close as my own apartment building and as far away as South Africa. And as a matter of fact, it was the journals from South Africa that inspired me to travel there. And it was the people in all of the places I went who made the traveling less exhausting and made me feel like I was at home with them wherever we happened to be. Beautiful people from all walks of life, sharing coffee and sharing a part of their lives with me. HIV makes the body progressively weaker, but it makes the soul stronger. There was a Socratic acceptance in everyone of the limit of their own knowledge, but they were always more than happy to share things that they did know and the power of their faith, no matter their current situation. I learned to pray in the strangest of places, and I learned that meditation is prayer, and to accept one's own mortality is to accept that earth, for all it is indeed heaven if you know how to look through the right lens. So I marched in parades and I sang in concerts. I listened to the songs that were recommended to me by the people I had met, and oh, there were so many songs. The world found a new way of shining, and though I am sick, the memories of the pain and laughter in each story healed me just a little bit. Still, though, I carry with me the memory of the people in that grave. I carry the burden of the unnoticed with me, because so early on I made a point to notice them. And in the subway in New York one day, I met one of the unnoticed and poured her a cup of coffee. And at the end of our conversation, she asked me, please, whatever you do, don't let me fade away. And a week later, I went to an art exhibit, and there on the wall hung the work of an HIV-positive artist, white text on simple blue paper, don't let me fade away. Inspired, I wanted to carry this message with me, so I had it tattooed on my arm. And when I went back to Jackson and a storyteller saw my ink, she touched it and cried and said, Lord, please don't let me fade away. And then she started to sing, and it was like 10,000 cranes rose from the table in that church basement. And she kept singing as if it was through her eyes. I could see the soul of the unnoticed, 10,000 of them rising like cranes and singing with her. With that melody, the world erupted. So I took her song on the road with me, and with friends and with those unnoticed, I shared the words that I collected. We lit up the street with vocalizations and works of art, and we kept going so that no night in that week we were there was ever too dark. In a tent, we served coffee and heard more stories of perseverance. And in parks of big cities, we made sure that stories were shared so that the unnoticed could finally have a voice. And we made the noticed take notes. Then, like in Jackson, we started to sing. And though it didn't actually happen, it felt again like 10,000 cranes rising legs akimbo in a symphony of voices crying, we will not fade away. And in 4 years since that February day of my diagnosis, I haven't faded either. Now I'm on the road to becoming a Unitarian minister so that I can keep on noticing. But it's not really about me, is it? It's about the song, the 10,000 cranes, the tattoos, the sanctuaries, the towns. It's about the fear in our life that we will die unnoticed. So I will share with you what I have learned from them. That love comes in millions of forms, and that by accepting that we will die, we can make the earth heaven. And I know that this disease will still be the end of so many, but there is no need for any more of us to go unnoticed.
Greetings to you from Brunswick, Maine. I have a story for you. A few years ago, I visited Mystic, Connecticut. I spent one whole glorious day in the historic part of town. Oh, what a beautiful town it is. Around lunchtime, I found myself right in front of a slice of heaven pizza. How could I resist? I went inside and I ordered myself a slice of pepperoni pizza, a salad, and a cold beverage. Once that was done, I looked around at my dining companions. There was a family across from me. Oh, the mother and father in that family had a problem. They were working on their smartphones to find a solution. I heard words like, there's one 2 streets over, or here's one 3 miles away, or maybe we should call. I was feeling badly for them. I hope they could solve their problem. Then I saw their son sitting next to them. Oh, he did not have a problem. No, sir. He had a slice of heaven pepperoni pizza, and he began to dismantle it. He picked off every one of those pepperonis, licked it clean, and put it in his mouth, savoring it. I began to salivate for the pepperonis that would be on my own slice of pizza. I watched as he devoured every single piece, and then I saw his very tomatoey face. I wondered what would come next. Oh, the cheese. Yes, and he knew how to do it. He found a little loose piece of the cheese, and you know, he put that little piece of cheese in his mouth, and then very slowly and very deliberately, he pulled and pulled and stretched until he had pulled every inch of that cheese into his mouth, slurping and enjoying it all the way. Then it was time to do something about the sauce. Well, he licked off every single bit of sauce on that wedge of pizza. I wondered what he would do with just the dough that was left. I got my answer. He put that dough in his mouth like a little bird. He flapped it up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. It was so funny. I just laughed right out loud. I couldn't help myself. The parents turned and looked at me, and I smiled at them. Then I noticed as the parents seemed to come awake from a very, very long sleep, they looked around. They looked at their son. The father took the wedge of dough out of his son's mouth and put it on the plate. And then the waitress came. Dad took out his credit card and paid for the meal. And then they began to gather up their things to leave. They moved toward the door. And you know, that little boy, he turned around and waved at me, knowing the whole time that I had been his most attentive and appreciative audience. I finished my lunch and my waitress came, but she morphed into a magical giver of wishes when she told me that I had no bill. The family had paid for my meal. Oh my goodness, I was gobsmacked. This truly was a slice of heaven. I had been gifted with free dinner theater. I was stunned. That was so nice. A random act of kindness. I thought about it. Oh, I know what to do with a random act of kindness. The best thing to do is to pass it on and create a chain reaction. So now it was my turn to go out and look for an opportunity to do a random act of kindness. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Doug Wade. I am the fourth generation owner of Wade's Dairy, along with my sister Susan. And I'm going to tell you the stories of the milk bottles tonight. And I'd like to recognize Roger Saul's photography, who did a wonderful job photographing all these milk bottles, and Elizabeth Boyce of the Eastern Historical Society, who helped give me some data on one of the stories I have to tell you tonight. So I am ready to go. My great-grandfather, Frank Henry Wade, started our family business in Easton, Connecticut. In 1893, his day started shortly after midnight, milking his 25 cows, and then making deliveries to his customers in a horse and wagon. Frank would ladle out his fresh cream into a family's pitcher and then collect 6 pennies and be on his way. The first glass milk bottle was patented in 1878. Early bottles were blown by hand, complete with bubbles in the glass. These early bottles often came with tin top closures. They were made from lead glass and could be dropped 4 feet to a hard surface without breaking. By 1910, most home delivery was being done in glass bottles. Frank Wade was a very progressive farmer and quickly recognized the need for better sanitation. Frank learned that his raw, unpasteurized milk could harbor deadly bacteria that could cause illnesses such as tuberculosis and scarlet fever. Frank moved to Fairfield in 1907 and started pasteurizing milk from his cows and soon also from his neighboring farms. In the mid-1930s, bottle companies learned how to put color printing on glass. This is known as pyroglazing or applied color labeling. The dairies soon started boldly advertising their names and putting catchy pictures and slogans on their bottles. "You can whip our cream, but you can't beat our milk" stands out as one of the best. Around 1940, enterprising bottle manufacturers came out with cream top bottles. Before homogenization, the cream would rise to the top and fill the bulbous area. Cream tops had many variations, the most famous being Cop the Cream and Babyface bottles. The odd-shaped bottle in the middle was known as the toothache. Milk bottles came in all shapes and sizes as dairies experimented to make their brand stand out. Single-serve returnable glass bottles proved to be the most varied. Initially, these bottles looked like miniature quarts, but soon they were cream tops, hand grenades, and others with longer necks. Small cream bottles from the 1920s often displayed the word gill, G-I-L-L, printed on them as a size measurement. Gill is an English word that means a quarter of a pint. Cream was the predominant product sold in these tiny bottles. The word gill as a measurement was common up until the 1940s, when this size bottle virtually disappeared. In the late 1930s, many dairies started using pyroglazed milk bottles with a distinctive script to showcase their company's name. Believe it or not, the 2 Wade bottles in the picture are not related to my business. The bottle on the left is from the A.J. Wade Dairy that operated in Bloomfield, Connecticut, and the other from a Wade's Dairy in New York State. Here's one of our bottles with its well-known logo. Why did the other bottles look so similar to ours? The bottle companies, they had great marketing people, and they showed every dairy how nice their family name would look in script and in color. Our logo design was shared by thousands of dairy companies in the 1940s and 50s. Some dairies advertised that their amber-colored bottles protected the milk's vitamin content. The real reason was anything but. Dairies could avoid an expensive process called clarification that removed impurities from the cow's milk. The dark amber color kept you from seeing all the sediment that fell to the bottom of the bottle. Yucky. The Divco was the milkman's delivery vehicle of choice. The truck was designed so the operator could drive standing up or sitting down. This made for quick exits and returns to the driver's seat. There was no passenger seat. There were no seat belts. Today, these trucks are collector's items and some are modified into hot rods. Adore Dairy packaged their milk in a boutique bottle that was unique in the industry. The family also took great pride in milking only Guernsey cows. These cows produced a much higher butterfat than other breeds. Today, whole milk is standardized with 3.25% butterfat. Adore's had more than 5%. That was one rich and creamy glass of milk. Elwood Birdsey Wade was a handsome young man, 23 years of age in 1920. He was married to a beautiful woman, had fathered 2 children, but he was also carrying on an affair with a woman named Ethel, who absolutely hated her husband. On the morning of August 29th, Elwood brutally murdered Ethel's husband, George Knott. Elwood and Ethel tried to hide the body by placing it in a trunk and dumping it in an eastern swamp. The sordid affair and subsequent murder trial were a national sensation that made newspaper headlines from coast to coast. Elwood's trial in January of 1921 was found guilty of murder and hung the following May. Ethel was sentenced to life in prison. I purchased this milk bottle from the estate of a man who collected more than 7,000 bottles. He tagged this 1929 bottle with a handwritten note saying that it belonged to my grandfather, Howard F. Wade. It remains a mystery why Howard briefly changed the name of his business to Fairfield Dairy instead of Wade's. Something to do with Elwood? During the 1950s and 60s, more and more families had both parents in the workforce, and the milkman didn't always find someone at home to receive the delivery. The insulated porch box, again advertising the dairy's name, came to the rescue and kept the milk cold. Whether it hung on a wall or sat on the porch, every home had a milk box. Max Yasgur got a call one afternoon from some city folks who asked if they could use his field for a rock concert. They had assured local officials that no more than 50,000 people would attend. The actual crowd was closer to 450,000 and caused massive traffic jams. Yasgur Farms was the home of the 1969 Woodstock Festival. The early era of the milkman saw deliveries being made sometimes twice per day. As the dairies honed their techniques, they were able to increase the shelf life of their milk. Home delivery frequency declined to 3 deliveries and then twice each week. The milkman relied upon his trusty carrier to deliver the milk, juice, butter, and eggs. A gentleman named Stu performed home delivery in a Diffco milk truck with a cow head on the windshield in Norwalk, Connecticut during the 1960s. Stu was an entrepreneurial businessman who saw an opportunity when the state moved the post road to run directly in front of his dairy. Clover Farms became Stu Leonard's, the world's largest dairy store. The milk bottles had a fabulous run for more than 100 years. Although the heyday of home delivery is long gone, there are many milk bottles holding center stage as hobbyists recognize their iconic history. Do a search on eBay for milk bottles, you get 25,000 plus hits. Milk bottles will be telling stories for many years to come. Thank you.
Wow, isn't this great? I'm having such a great time tonight listening to all these stories. And I would tell you, Doug, I want to go find milk bottles. We don't have them here in Hampton, Virginia, where I am. And so I'm a little, and Daniel's telling me he's drinking it too. So I'm feeling really, unfortunate right at the moment. Again, I'm from Hampton, Virginia, Sheila, and I am ready to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a storyteller. Okay, it's really me. I'm the storyteller, and I'm a storyteller that travels all over the world, actually. And I love traveling because I get to see new and different and interesting things and places. It's always so much fun. But the thing I love most about traveling as a storyteller is food. I love eating good food. Well, I like food, period, but I love eating good food. I would always go to the place that there was not a franchise, something that was owned just in that town or just in that city. And that's the place that I would go to eat. Well, I was eating a bit too much, if you tell the truth. So I started on the keto diet. And after about a year of the keto diet, I was looking good. I'd even lost one of my chins. That's how good I was looking. And I was excited about what was going on with my weight. And then the world changed. We stopped. There was no more performance. There was no more traveling. There was nothing. And I was stuck at home, in my house, by myself. It was going to be hard, and I didn't know what to do. But I didn't stay long in that house before I co-founded what is now a 501c3 called Artists Standing Strong Together. And soon enough, we were putting storytelling online, and we were having all kinds of programs and workshops and teaching people how to do this. I wasn't bored any longer at all. Not only that, people started to call me and say, we want you to still do your presentations. So I was doing my historic character presentations, and people felt like they had a front row seat, no matter where they were when they were online seeing me. It was wonderful, and I loved all the work I was doing. Well, there was one little added thing. I was by myself, and so, well, I didn't always wake up on time, so I found out about Uber Eats. They delivered. So oftentimes in the morning, I would contact, Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or Wawa, because Wawa would come over and they'd bring me for breakfast some meatballs. And then in the evening, sometimes I would do my, not usual, but every now and then, pizza, not quite the slice of heaven like Phyllis, but pizza. And then sometimes I would also have Asian food. But I realized I was starting to eat a little bit too much and stop cooking. So I contacted Youth to Earn and to Earn and Learn, and they package things. They get fruit and they bring you, and they pre-package food for you, and the meals are already made. And I was on my way to losing weight again. I was gathering all this food. One day a week, they would bring all the food I would need for a week. And then my refrigerator broke. It died. Kaput, gone. I couldn't keep anything in there. I didn't have enough space in my freezer, which decided to stay alive, but I didn't have enough space for all the things that I had. And I needed food. You got to understand, don't you? So I went back to ordering. But now it was midway through the pandemic. Other people had started ordering Panda Express, Boston Market, Outback Steakhouse, Red Lobster. I could get food in the morning and in the afternoon, and I could get food all night long. And then I found the places I had never seen before in my town. Bowman's Hole in the Wall, Cheerio, the best best chops you'll ever have. Juicy King House with, such good seafood. I was ordering day and night and day. I was ordering from places I had never even ordered from before and eating things I never even knew existed. I was eating myself well. Oh, I know it probably wasn't right, and my account was showing how much I was eating and such, but I know you're asking me about the exercise. My best exercise was the fork to my mouth. The fork to my mouth, the fork to my mouth. I had that down and my fingers were good and my mouth could open and close. And unfortunately, I realized as I started not fitting into any clothes that I was turning into a big fat cat. That is what I was becoming. I literally had gained almost 100 pounds in that time. I wanted so badly to stop. I wanted to change the way I was, but it's just so much easier to order from Grubhub and then it came. Everything stopped for me again because there came my second grandson. I already had one grandson. He was 9, but my second grandson came on March 8th. He was so little and tiny. It was wonderful to have him in the world. He went to go visit my father, and my father looked up at me and said, "Isn't this amazing? Aren't I fortunate? I get to live long enough to be a great grandfather." And my heart sank. I didn't think I would live long enough to be a great grandmother. So back to the fruit, back to Youth to Earn, back to eating food that was going to be good for me. And yes, stop ordering things in. I started the whole food diet first so I could get things in my body and check to see what was working for my body. eggs and vegetables, fruits, fish. I got to eat beef too, and maybe that's not great, but it was certainly good. And I have started to change the way I am and what I eat. Because food delivery, well, it was good while it lasted. But this is the reason I want to be around a long, long time. Thank you. Should have added more. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? I think I'm back. That was spectacular. I am inspired. I am deeply moved. I'm still laughing. And now I'm a little bit hungry and I haven't eaten dinner yet. But I want to thank every one of our presenters so much. It was spectacular. And before we move on, I need to give a shout out to the Bridgeport team for troubleshooting. Brilliant to have, bravo. Grace under pressure, Bill, thank you. I'm so happy we were able to hear Daniel's amazing story. So with that, we're going to take a little tiny pause, 5 minutes. It's going to be time to stretch, maybe pour a little more wine. And we're going to watch two 100-second PechaKuchas presented earlier this year at the 24-hour International PechaKucha Day. And the first one is going to be done by Lauren Vincent COAKLEY from Downtown Special Services. And then the second is going to be Suzanne KACHMAR from City Lights Gallery. And Bill, I'll let you take that away. See you in a few.
My love story is about the community I love and the ways in which we can show love for our own community. The neighborhood that I love is downtown Bridgeport, Connecticut, but I'll get to that in a moment. This is my family. We lived in New York City for 10 years. Eventually, the NYC grind inspired us to look for those greener pastures in the other side of the fence. We moved back to my hometown in 2018, but I was worried about where we were moving. I wondered if my family would be accepted and included in Fairfield County. I knew that in Bridgeport, it would feel like being right back in the beautiful human rainbow of Manhattan, not like this zombie apocalypse, which is how many people in our area perceive Bridgeport. They are wrong. Their perceptions are steeped in racist, classist, and isolationist notions. Every step I've taken since moving back home has been toward breaking down those stereotypes and perceptions through love and education. I love my job because of this neighborhood, the people, and their places. Meet the people of colorful Bridgeport, a vibrant, diverse, creative community of people who have embraced the city and the downtown, have moved here, have invested or started and grown a business here, who create here. When we meet each other, hear our stories, fear breaks down, stereotypes are challenged, empathy happens. ALICIA Cobb is one of those creators who starts from a place of love, shows great respect, and introduces others to this wonderful community. She's introduced 8,000 viewers to Bridgeport and herself through her PechaKucha, The Healing Touch of Body Painting. I love getting to roll out the welcome mat in my community, inviting all into its special places. My love for this community means that I love Bridgeport, entrepreneurs, diversity, storytelling, breaking down stereotypes, and supporting others' creative energies. I hope you find your way to love your community. My love.
I love art. I love Bridgeport art. Like any love relationship, it has its ups and downs. The pandemic put a strain on our relationship. I love learning and producing new things. Pre-COVID style arts programs had to change. No more large gatherings. We needed to adapt, and we did. I love how creating COVID-19 style projects strengthened relationships and worked our creativity muscles, adapting to online programs and storefront window installations. I love leveraging the arts to address current issues, to support and to inspire. Bridgeport artists thanked essential workers and sprinkled art in downtown places. I love working with artists who are good collaborators. We learn from each other and increase our capacity to produce multimedia presentations. I love the thrill of reacting to art that I'm seeing for the first time and discussing the diverse art forms, content, and techniques with the artists of the Bridgeport Art Trail. I love my work and that programs are multi-generational, connecting artists of diverse backgrounds, experiences, training, ability, and age. I love that we produce relevant programs and support others' initiatives when we can respectfully take a lesser role, supporting and learning rather than leading. I love that collaborators are willing to take the risk to address difficult subject matter and produce new programs about our challenging times. I love that provocative art can be the sword and the salve to lance and heal wounds of misunderstanding and hate, spurring us to think, to feel, to question, to talk, to make, to do, and to love.
Time for part 2.
Are we ready to go, Bill?
Yep, that was a quick pause.
That was a quick pause. Welcome back, everybody. So thank you for sharing those 2 wonderful 100-minute PechaKuchas. What an exercise in editing. I don't think I could do it. We're going to start Act 2 with a very special presenter, Marian O'Keefe. Marian O'Keefe is one of the Barnum Museum's longtime volunteers. Marian arrived at the Barnum Museum almost 25 years ago. She reminds me all the time she got here a little before I did. And she's going to kick off part 2. And we're going to be playing a recording of Marian tonight, but I know she and her husband Tim are watching, so take it away, Marian.
I have been a docent at the Barnum Museum for nearly 25 years. I laughed when I saw this image. I wonder what brought Godzilla to Bridgeport. Was he saving the museum or eating it? Barnum feared Godzilla several times in his history, but each time he came out on top. I'm from Boston, but you can't hardly tell. My local history was national history for everyone who visited. I developed a deep interest in American history and have worked in museums from North Carolina to Montreal and in Connecticut from Norwich to the Naugatuck Valley. I'm not a historian. I am a history detective. I find answers to questions, find items for our museums, and correct the history books. From 1975 to 1978, I was involved with a sister city program between Norwich, England and Norwich, Connecticut as part of a bicentennial program. I regularly visited friends in Norwich and England. In the 90s, I worked for a foundation in Montreal that owned tobacco artifacts. They wanted me to update their accession records. A friend in Norwich sent me a photo of a Highlander tobacco figure called Jock, which stood in front of a tobacco store in Norwich for almost 200 years and then went missing. Could I find it? Yes, I found it. There are thousands of collectible tobacco figures in the world. I had just updated an accession card for a Highland figure at the foundation and realized it was Jock. Norwich was ecstatic, but realized that Jock would probably never return home due to the very high cost. In 1988, I saw an article in Yankee magazine about the P.T. Barnum Museum. I thought that if I ever got back to Western Connecticut, I would love to work there. In 1997, we returned to the lower Naugatuck Valley, and I immediately volunteered at the museum, and I've never regretted that choice. P.T. Barnum, the greatest showman, was born one of 12 children in Bethel, Connecticut. His father died when he was 15. He ran a general store and a newspaper with only a 6th grade education. He finally moved to New York. He just wanted to make people happy. This is his mother, Irena Taylor. She was a funny lady. The exposure time with early cameras was very slow. She was actually smiling, but her mouth sagged. Barnum's father was married twice. His first wife died. P.T. was the first child from the second marriage with Irena. Barnum moved to New York City with his wife Charity. They had one child at that time. He purchased the American Museum in 1841. It was a huge success. This museum burned down in 1865. It was arson, probably a plot by a Confederate agent. He then bought a second museum. Unfortunately, it had a defect in the flue and burned down in 1868. Godzilla had struck twice. That was when Barnum changed his career and retirement plans with the start of the greatest show on earth, his circus. Barnum's first partner was William Coop in 1872. His last partner was James Bailey, thus becoming the Barnum and Bailey Circus. In 1888, Barnum put together plans to build his Barnum Institute of Science and History. It opened 2 years after his death in 1893. It is one of the most outstanding buildings in Bridgeport. In 1960, it was renamed the P.T. Barnum Museum. I became a volunteer at the museum in 1997. The model of Iranistan, Barnum's first Bridgeport home, built in 1846, was made for a TV movie, then given to the museum. Beau Bridges played P.T. Barnum. The original house burned down in 1856 when a workman left a cigar burning in the house. Another exhibit that has interested visitors is the Fiji mermaid. It's not a monkey. The original mermaid was made from a head of a baboon, the body of an orangutan, and the tail of a fish. We have a very realistic copy. Barnum's Jumbo was almost 12 feet tall and weighed 6 tons. Visitors today take their pictures in front of an actual size replica in the museum. Jumbo got his name when he was small, but he grew to an enormous size. His name became synonymous with big. The next time you see something advertised as jumbo size, think of this elephant. Godzilla hit us again in 2010. A tornado hit the museum. There was a lot of damage, including the twistings of the dome. We had to close the main building and the gallery. We eventually reopened the gallery and have been using it as a temporary museum until we can fully reopen. 2017, we had special visitors. Barnum descendants who we had never met before. Florence Tuttle Seeley DeBakey and her daughter, Michelle DeBakey, came here. Florence is the great-great-great-granddaughter of Barnum and the great-great-granddaughter of Pauline Barnum. In 2018, the movie The Greatest Showman had a preview in Bridgeport. The music was great. Hugh Jackman and the all-star cast were terrific. For 2 years, we were overwhelmed with visitors. When the DVD was released, visitors continued to show up to see the gallery. We had to close the gallery in 2020 because of the COVID-19 virus. There was over-embellishment in the movie, but it didn't matter. That's Hollywood. The kids were watching it over and over and over again when the DVD came out. The circus closed in 2017. In 2018, Nabisco made a change to Barnum's animal crackers. Up to that time, the animals pictured on the box were in circus car cages. Then they removed the cages and the animals were free. The Barnum Museum is undergoing a historic restoration. When it reopens, it will again be a major attraction in Connecticut, forever. Barnum said the noblest art is that of making others happy. It seems that Godzilla is protecting the museum, so I will be happy to see you at the grand reopening. I have been
A shout out to everyone who's watching around the world tonight. I am so excited to tell you my story. And I have a question for you. Are you ready for an adventure? Let's begin. I stopped celebrating my birthday in 1985. For decades, whenever someone asked, "What's your month and day of your birthday? I want to bring you a cake." I replied, "I don't have one." If they persisted, I said, "Join me in celebrating my mom. She loves cake." Then, as I was turning 50, I had a change of heart. I was on a plane from London to Dublin, and there were all these college-age girls wearing bunny ears and tails, and they were getting ready for a weekend of merriment. They inspired me to think about doing something off the radar and over the top. I think I'm going to create a hen party and invite two of my best friends. And I'm going to have it at my house. I'm going to bring in all the food that I love, and I'm going to try to mimic a Chinese wedding, 9 courses. I invited Laura and Karen. Laura is a good friend, next door neighbor in Connecticut, and Karen is from my college days in Brooklyn, New York, and they're both like family. And they're both foodies. They don't know one another, and they both said yes, even though I called it a food orgy. I went shopping to all my favorite places, and I took out a course from each different restaurant. And I'll tell you, I knew about this because I had not been cooking for a whole year on the weekends. And oh my gosh, the infused olive oils. And some of the things are crazy expensive, but I spared no cost. As I pulled out my credit card, I sang "Happy Birthday to Me" silently. And I had to show from my work for a couple of hours 2 full coolers of food and an exciting collection of shopping bags. And this rush of impulse shopping was making up for all those years of not celebrating my birthday. When I got home, I chopped tomatoes and garlic, put it in the oven, because when Karen and Laura came, I wanted to smell like they were coming into something really special. I hand wrote a menu explaining all the courses, and I put on my best linens on the table, ones I had never used before. I pulled out an eclectic group of serving dishes, so it would look like this is homemade. And I asked them, "Take a look. Here's the menu." And they were just amazed. You should have seen it. But I'll tell you, it was quite a production. Even though I didn't cook, there was all the details. And so now I'm really, really happy that I only invited 2 people, but I forgot one thing, the entertainment. Oh my God, I could have bring in dancing boys or a psychic. And I thought to myself, okay, how are you going to manage eating this monster meal without getting sick to your stomach? And then I remembered a TV show where cooks would prepare just 1 spoonful of food and they go, "That's it, 1 bite. That's how I'm going to handle it." And I can only tell you the sparkle on Laura and Karen's faces. They knew they were in for the VIP experience. And when they read the menu, they took turns. Their eyes just popped wide. But they thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to eat all this food? It's enough for 6 people. And I said, no worries. We're going to rest between the courses, and we can even pump up the music and dance. But just take your time. Take 1 bite of everything like I'm going to do. Well, we started with the red wine, and it was full-bodied, and it had berries and vanilla notes, and we had all these artisan cheeses and dips, and it was just an amazing beginning to the meal. We talked about the things we were tasting. We were talking about our favorite food. We're talking about friends and families and travel stories. And they were both comparing notes because they took day trips with me and their trips were just as outrageous as this dinner party. Oh, the lobster mac and cheese were calling us. It was creamy with big chunks of lobster. I just silently loved the taste sensation. And Laura and Karen kept saying, oh my God, I have to have more. Well, the local clams were freshly shucked at the local seafood market. They were delicate and they tasted the sea, and we had slightly tangy sauce, and we put those little oyster crackers right on top. Over and over again, Karen and Laura said, oh my God, I can't just take one bite. I have to have more. And I smiled, sipping my Pellegrino and my wine. I enjoyed the joy of on their faces. Well, it was at the 2-hour point, and the dessert was tiramisu and cannolis, and I had room, but Karen and Laura were overfull. In fact, they were starting to look green. Laura, who loves dessert, said, I'm going to eat this dessert if it kills me. Turning 50 was fabulous. I realized that I had earned so much wisdom over the years since I last celebrated my birthday. Will I do this again? Maybe for my 70th. Just watch and see. Thank you.
You're on, Sharon.
Thank you. This has been a fun evening. I'm coming to you from the western part of New Hampshire, right along the Connecticut River, which is our border with Vermont. And Bill, I'm ready to go. Mama's in the kitchen. All it takes is a familiar aroma or a recipe in an old cookbook to trigger a food memory from long ago. Memories breed stories. Stories bring us together. Let me give you some food for thought to spark your own memories and stories. I remember plates of kielbasa, gołąbki, kapusta, pierogi my Polish grandmother used to make, Mom and my aunts helping. There'd be several seatings at the table in Babci's kitchen, so everyone could be served. My blonde, blue-eyed mother knew her mother would never approve of my dad, a Hungarian gypsy with dark hair and complexion. He had to promise to shave his mustache before she'd bring him home to meet her mother. Oh, he promised, but he didn't. Mom would make big pots of chicken paprikash, Hungarian chicken and dumplings. My favorite. I loved her brown gravy and the dumplings, which were made by dropping balls of dough into the big pot of boiling water. But Mom didn't like milk, so she never put the sour cream that was in the recipe. I remember Dad once tried to sneak the sour cream in so that she wouldn't notice. Of course she knew, if only for the changed color of the gravy. She was not amused. I never knew my nudge mama, my Hungarian grandmother. My dad, the third of her 4 sons, had to quit school to take care of her when she was ill with breast cancer, while his older brothers were working and the youngest was in school. She supervised his cooking and baking from her bed. The secret to a light and fluffy cake is in the beating, she told him. Be sure you beat that batter a long time, he told me. I wonder if she had memories of cakes decorated like this one from her homeland. When I think of my mother-in-law, I think of lobsters and pies. Squirming lobster dropped into big pots of boiling water in her kitchen in Maine. The next generation continues the tradition at summer reunions. Grandma Wood made making a pie look as easy as pie. Not so easy for me. Chocolate pudding pies are my limit. But once my husband surprised me by following his mother's tradition and making some wonderful strawberry rhubarb pies. Food memories remind us of other people in our lives too. The aroma of cinnamon rolls takes me right back to Aunt Stella's kitchen. Jell-O salads jiggling on a plate, that's Aunt Sophie. The taste of banana bread fresh from Aunt Helen's oven. But when my husband and I were first married, I'd return to our apartment after a day of teaching kindergarten and pull out a cookbook. It was fun to try new recipes for someone who loves to eat. There'd be no leftovers when the recipe was supposed to feed 4. But our children, only 3 of these are ours, didn't share their father's willingness to eat just about anything. So I stopped trying new recipes when they were young. I started to spend more time on hobbies other than cooking. Growing up in Southern Connecticut, I was immersed in Polish culture. But after my husband and I were married, we moved hundreds of miles away to Bangor, Maine. I loved my new teaching job, and we were happy with our new life, but I missed my family and all those traditions. But little did I know that a move to Claremont, New Hampshire would take me back to my Polish roots. Thanks to a church built by Polish immigrants in the early 1900s. I quickly became active with their annual Polish American Heritage Month events, which included cooking classes. I was the go-to person for organizing and publicity, but sometimes I found myself filling in at a cooking demonstration. I was no expert, but I can follow a simple recipe and tell a story as I go along. And I had some excellent Polish cooks helping me. As a college student, our daughter signed up for an exchange program to study abroad. In Budapest! Oh, that's my girl. Of course, my husband and I had to take our daughter to school. And then we explored both Hungary and Poland, from the castles to the wine cellars. 4 years later, Vicki invited me to take a mother-daughter return trip to Budapest. We traveled light, only 1 backpack each. Oh, we sure put a lot of miles on our shoes. Hungary is noted for its excellent and affordable restaurant food, but the American chains were there too, even a Burger King in Budapest. Of course, we didn't eat there, but we had some of our favorite recipes in elegant Hungarian restaurants, including chicken paprikash at an outdoor cafe, and on a Polish farm that raised these cute little fellows. Our host's neighbors planted huge fields of mushrooms, and I tried my Polish saying, "Lubię grzyby," I like mushrooms, and my hostess immediately phoned a neighbor's boy to pick some for me. Mushroom soup for dinner that night. And here we are, 2 mamas in the kitchen in a Polish farmhouse, peeling potatoes together, creating memories of special recipes, family traditions, and a mother's love. Just a little food for thought.
Greetings to my global community. I'm just so excited to present with you all this evening. Thank you, Bill. I'm ready. When I was a little girl, if anyone asked what I wanted to do when I grew up, I would often respond and tell them, I'm going to be an actress and an attorney when I grow up. That's what I'm going to be. I grew up on the beautiful island of Jamaica, the birthplace of reggae music, home of the famous jerk chicken, a place where you'll hear the vital saying, "Ital is vital," and a cultural feeling of liberation to wear your locks, braids, whatever style you wanted to rock. It was a beautiful vibe to wear my hair in its natural state, or so I thought. As a teen, I migrated to the United States. It was a new country with a newly altered hair. My hair was now chemically altered with a relaxer which transformed it from kinky coily to bone straight.
Great job, Sharon. Oh, her name is Sharon.
It no longer had a cultural vibe. I began to lose myself as I ate and digested what the media fed me about acceptable standards of beauty, which aesthetically did not look like me. One day I sat down and thought to myself, would my natural hair look good anymore? Especially since I haven't seen it since, oh my God, it's been at least 2 decades. Wow. That thought stuck in my mind. And that was a light bulb moment for me. And in that moment, you know what? I decided that it was time to get back to my natural vibe. That was my wake-up call. It truly was. And it wake-up call to stop feeding on things that were a detriment to my mental health. It was time. It was time to make a change. It was time to reignite the dream that I once had as a little girl. And now that dream started to come true, oh my goodness, because back in December 2015, I met this phenomenal woman named Kim Bianca Williams. She became my mentor. She's a dear friend who I honestly think that she's an angel in disguise. I really do think that. She encouraged me to write about something that I loved and passionate about. And in spring of 2016, my very first theater project as a playwright and director was born. And I entitled it, I Am My Hair. It pretty much was a conversation starter. This project is definitely one for conversation. And it started out as a solo show where I played 6 different characters dealing with issues of self-image, self-esteem, and just being accepted authentically in society. My very first theater project was held at the Loft on Crescent Ave in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I didn't even realize the impact at the time. When the show premiered, it actually sold out. I couldn't even believe it. It was just so amazing. And I ended up doing an encore performance the next day. And I remember my mom was so proud. She just kept smiling. She's now an ancestor as she passed in spring of 2020. I love you, Mom. Whew. After those first 2 shows, I started to think to myself, I could probably work with schools and other organizations, right, to share this project and to raise awareness on the issue of natural hair. Those were some of the things that started to come to my mind. And the idea led to me being invited to Yale University through the Gear Up program that they had for students, where I presented the project to high schools and their parents. And so we talked about things like self-esteem, self-image, and also self-confidence, just to deal with certain issues. And I also collaborated with natural hair expos and conference organizers to bring the characters to life once more for some workshops and other discussions, and just dealing with some deep-rooted issues about natural hair, because it's such an important thing. Some of my work was also featured in an anthology collection of stories to help empower girls and women It was entitled Our Voices and Our Stories. I even did a TED Talk where I shared one of the characters. It's the teenage character, and I entitled the TED Talk, The Antidote to Low Self-Esteem. I had no idea that my decision to return to my natural self would push me to create this body of work and then have me pulled from the shadows into becoming a source of inspiration, empowerment, and advocacy for girls and young women. In 2019, I came across the Crown Coalition and years of work by a law professor, the name of Dr. Wendy Green. She has been working with legislators to pass the Crown Act in every state, and I'm proud to have signed the petition to help pass the Crown Act in Connecticut. This little girl, who once dreamed of being an actress and an attorney, is now using her artistry as ministry to help educate and inspire others for change. I feel extremely liberated to have gone back to the essence of my true self-image, to show girls and women around the world that they have the right to wear their natural hair as a crown of confidence. Thank you so much for listening.
Hello, I am from Beaumont, Texas. I live in New York City, have been there for 30 years, but I'm coming to you from Orlando, Florida, where I'm doing a solo show of mine, Dangerous When Wet. And I am ready to go, Bill. So it's too bad that my Cajun Mawmaw, Mabel, never had any pictures taken of her with her pies. It's because she made the best pies in Beaumont, Texas. No, the best pies in the world. But she wasn't pie proud. She was grandkid proud. And there are tons of pictures like this of her with her grandkids. You could always count on Mawmaw to show up at any holiday function with her Tupperware 3-tiered pie container with lemon meringue pies and pecan pies. But the best pie was her chocolate meringue pie. The meringue was as high as her Queen Elizabeth hairdo. The chocolate was dark brown, almost black, like Texas crude oil, and the crust light and flaky. I'm pretty sure Pawpaw, her husband, is eating one of those, a slice of that chocolate meringue pie. And one of my cousins, one of her many grandchildren, is eagerly waiting for his. But when she died in the late 80s, I thought her pies died with her. There were no recipes. And then I moved to New York and I discovered diners. And there were these amazing pies in glass cases with these meringues as high as the Empire State Building. And I thought they look better than Mawmaw's pies. And they looked almost too good to be true. And then I tasted one. And they were too good to be true. They were awful. The lemon meringue pie, oh my God, the meringue might as well have been shaving cream. The filling was yellow petroleum jelly, and the crust, oh my God, it was limp and soggy like a wet noodle. I was done with pies for decades after that. And then my father died. And I found in his kitchen drawer some of Mawmaw's old recipes, which I thought didn't exist. And they're written on scraps of paper in her fat, loopy Mawmaw handwriting were recipes for chocolate meringue and pecan. And I decided to make it myself. I'd never made a pie before. This was right before COVID. I'm going to do it. But I didn't follow her directions. I didn't use Hershey's cocoa powder. I used Ghirardelli. Well, the filling was light brown. The crust was kind of tough, and the meringue, flat as a flitter. I was like, I gave up on pies after that. But then COVID hit, and then well into COVID, 9 months into it, the holidays are coming around, and I said to my husband, Michael, we're going to go out just for us, and we're going to decorate the house, and I'm going to make that chocolate meringue pie. And I had gotten a few tips, and this time I used Hershey's cocoa powder, and the filling was dark brown, almost black. The meringue was as high as Mawmaw's Queen Elizabeth hairdo. I had nailed it. And then I became obsessed. I was like the Mildred Pierce of Manhattan. I couldn't stop baking pies after that. Lemon meringue and pecan. And, and when I nailed that first pie, it was exhilarating as the first time I nailed my first writing assignment. I'm a writer. And then I branched off from Mawmaw's recipes, and I started making recipes out of obscure cookbooks like the Gasparilla cookbook out of the Tampa Junior League. And I'd had this cookbook on my shelf for years, but just for the homoerotic cover, but started to make pie recipes from there, like the Florida Orange Grove pie. It's an angel pie, which I discovered means that it has a meringue crust. I was meringue mad, and the filling was filled with meringue and whipped cream. Oh my God, I couldn't get enough of making the pies. And then people started sending me obscure pie recipes because I started posting about it on Facebook and Instagram, and I called it Jamie's Mawmaw Kitchen. And the more obscure, the better, like this orange meringue pie, which I made, and it's amazing. It's even better than a lemon meringue pie. And then I discovered that I was really just loving the process of making the pies. I had committed to making a pie once a week, and it was a different pie, a different recipe, but I wasn't afraid of making them anymore. I was just loving creating something new and loving getting into the process and the whole journey of it. And then my pies got more elaborate, like the mango ginger pie in a ginger snap crust, cookie crust with whipped cream florets that I piped out of a piping bag. And it was an excuse to also show off my Art Deco apartment and my Manhattan glass collection. And then I started making holiday pies, like this Valentine's Day pie I made for my husband, Michael. It's a chocolate covered raspberry pie with a raspberry coulis. And I discovered when it comes to pies, I'm a size queen. The higher the pie, the better. And then when Easter rolled around, Michael and I couldn't parade down Fifth Avenue in our Easter bonnets because of COVID. So I made an Easter bonnet pie. I took a striped citrus pie and I gussied it up with lavender whipped cream florets and garish pink peep bunnies and a dust ruffle of meringue cookies. And people were then asking me, like, how are you not the size of a barn with all these pies you're making each week? I'm like, well, I don't eat a pie at one sitting. We have like one slice a night. But when COVID hit, I committed to running every day, and I was up to 5 miles a day. So it was a good balance between exercise and pies. And I thought, you know what? If I could commit to running every day, making a pie every week, I could go back to the book, my second book that I had not touched in almost over a year, and show up for myself and commit to showing up with 10 pages of writing a week. And it was the pies that reignited this. But of course, my number one audience for the pies were my husband, Michael, and his favorite cake is a carrot cake. So I decided for his birthday that I would make him a carrot cake custard pie. And you know, we thought it was too bad that I didn't have a big audience to make these pies for because of COVID, but I discovered I was just happy making these pies for myself. And what they also taught me when I turned back to my writing is I have to love what I'm writing for myself before anyone else is going to love it. And the pies were the same thing. And they taught me to love the process almost as much as the journey. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I am CAROLYN, Vermont. I live in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I am a native of Jamaica, West Indies, and I thank you for joining us tonight. I am going to share my sisterhood journey with you. Let's go. My national coalition of 100 Black women, Sisterhood, advocates on behalf of Black women and girls to promote leadership development and gender equity in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. We provide sessions on legislation, STEM and STEAM programs for students, and career workshops and financial workshops for all ages. I love being part of a coalition of 100 Black women. It is such a great organization, and I love being part of that sisterhood. As an alum of Connecticut 100 Women of Color, we network and we support each other. Each year, a new class of 100 women is added. It is an honor to celebrate these sisters from across Connecticut. We have so much in common, yet so much uniqueness. My biological sister, Jennifer, actually shaped me to be the woman I am today. She asked our parents for a sister. When I was born, she nicknamed me Dawn. I did not know my name was CAROLYN until I started school. Family and close friends still call me Dawn up to this day. Now, these political rock stars have mentored me over the years. Their influence led me to run for political office. I joined them in mentoring other women for political office. We support our sisters through the political process. Pastor Carmen has been my friend for over 40 years. She's a powerful preacher who prays for me. Each year, she fills the Webster Bank Arena with a free event from women from the tri-state area for a day of speakers and praying. She is dynamic. This is my daughter, Sister Nicole. She brings me so much joy. She's my greatest accomplishment, my greatest creation. Sometimes people tell us that we look like sisters. She does not always appreciate that comment, but I do. These are my sisters, my community sisters, Lorraine, Sheila, and Terry Ann. We attend lots of events together. We usually can't wait to share our good and not so good news with each other. We listen to each other's sad story with love and compassion. We celebrate joy that we all feel. These are my sisters from our Woman to Woman group. We meet the first Monday of each month. During the summer months, we meet on the beach. Most of us are connected to Fairfield University. Some of us graduated together. Each meeting, we catch up on each other's lives. These sisters are my colleagues at work. We manage to get out of the office every now and then as a group to just celebrate life. We forget about work for a while and we just have fun together. There is always a good event going on to attract us. These are my nieces, sister nieces. I first connected with them when they were in the womb. We share lots of family celebrations together. I have watched them grow into the women that they are. They are beautiful and they know it. I love them. These sisters are some of my strongest supporters. Camilla and Julie always encourage me. We love to meet up at different restaurants for great conversation over good food. We support and we celebrate each other every step of the way. These sisters are always there for me. They were there for me when I was honored by City Lights Gallery in this picture. We have so much fun together. We love to take pictures and capture moments in time. We go on vacation together, take trips to Jamaica. Now these sisters, we don't get to see each other much, but when we get together, we play catch up. We laugh, we find out how our respective families are doing. We smile, we take pictures. This picture was taken at the 75th birthday celebration of one of our mentors. This sister works to protect women from sexual assault and domestic violence. In her role as executive director for Center for Family Justice, I once served as the board chair there. Deb Greenwood and I are both passionate about the work of the organization. This sister Lourdes and I have spent every Christmas Eve together for close to 40 years. Our children grew up like siblings. She loves for us to sit down and drink tea and chat about life. I value those precious moments with her. This sister Juanita has mentored me with my career. She serves at the head of the Fairfield County Community Foundation. Her door is always open. She is never too busy for me. We both enjoy mentoring young people. It brings us joy. These sisters work in another town, but they are quick to extend an invitation if there's an event in the New Haven County where we can meet up for lunch, dinner, or a good party. We were at a Girl Scout of Connecticut luncheon in this picture, and we had a great time, as you can tell by our smiles. Carla and Adrian are my sisters in the civil rights movement. We have been involved in NAACP for as long as I can remember. We are passionate about helping others. I have watched their children grow into adulthood. I love these sisters. These are my church sisters, First Lady Logan and Sister Patricia Howard. When Sunday service concludes, I make my way to where they are to share a big love hug. We pray for each other. These sisters are my community partners. We love our Bridgeport community and we volunteer in many ways. We share a common goal of service above self. I love my sisters. Thank you.
Well, welcome back to me, everyone. I'm so moved. There are so many women in those pictures that I know and love too. So thank you so much for CAROLYN for sharing all of those glorious pictures. And yes, every single one of them are inspiring and magnificent people. So I want to thank all of the presenters tonight. We had a little visit by a friend. You never know who comes to a museum. So on behalf of Godzilla and the Barnum Museum and City Lights Gallery and Downtown Special Services, all of the speakers tonight, we are so grateful that you have all come and been inspired by these wonderful stories. And again, we thank you for so generously sharing these moving stories. They mean a lot of, there's a lot of emotion to your own personal lives, and being able to come here and share them with the world is a miraculous thing. And for me, I am truly grateful. Donations to the PechaKucha organization basically supports these programs. They support all the help we get to put our PechaKucha nights together, and we thank the headquarters in Tokyo for making this platform available for us. Donations can still be made on the registration site. You can see that on the URL somewhere in your world. Now, our next PechaKucha night is going to be a hybrid. We are planning a hybrid. There's going to be some presenters and some audience in person, as well as some live stream options. So there'll be something for everybody. So mark August 12th in your calendar for the next PechaKucha. If you're watching and you've considered doing one of these, contact Bill Derry. We'd be happy to hear your story. And please do not forget about Bridgeport 200. This is a miraculous year for this city, and we're going to keep coming together to celebrate the amazing people here. So I'm going to say thank you. Usually I wrap up the night by saying, everybody drive home carefully. But tonight, I'm going to just say, be careful, be safe, be healthy, and we'll see you real soon. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy your evening.